Hello there. Today we're going to have a look at this room, which is the Muon spectrometer room. And the Muon spectrometer is a sub-detector within the Atlas detector in the Large Hadron Collider. So this room was made by Fitzharris, and there's just a simple place which is meant to represent the inside of one of the many tubes within the Muon chambers. And so when you enter this room, you're met with 4 buttons and a little greeting in the middle of the room. This button is to exit the room. Over here, if you click this, you can get a booklet, and booklets are represented here by tablets or something like an iPad, and this just gives you some basic information about how the Muon spectrometer works. Over here, if we press this button, we can begin a simulation where some electrically charged ions will spawn in the room, which are actually represented by ender pearl entities, and they just are magnetically pulled to the middle of the room before disappearing down this rod in the middle. And finally, over here in this area, you can press this button for a random fun fact. It takes a while, but yeah, it will give you a different fact every time, and there is a chance to get a rare die, and also there is another secret die over here, and once you collect all of the secret dies, then you can dye your armor, which is just a fun little mini game that follows you throughout all of the Fitzharris rooms. If you want to take a look at how this works, let's start by having a look at the simulation first, and then we can go over to the randomizer. So this simulation has a pulse extender on this side, and this just leads over into a repeater or a clock, and these then run down. This is my simple design for a 2-way randomizer. So comparators can detect items within storage containers, whether that's a hopper, a dropper, a chest, or anything that can just have items within it. And it also senses the amount of items based on stacks. And so if we take something like a diamond axe, for example, and some redstone can be put in stacks of 64. So 1 is only worth 1/64 of a stack, whereas diamond axes cannot be stacked with each other, so they are worth a full stack, which means that the signal strength outputted by the comparator is greater for the diamond axes. And I've just realized actually this down here should be a piece of redstone dust. And basically this entire system is just an array of these randomizers, and these tripwires are just to turn the redstone away from the hoppers, because if there's redstone pointing into the hoppers, then it will lock the hoppers, and nobody wants locked hoppers because that means that items then can't flow out of them as fast, and it just delays it. And so over here, this now summons, once the redstone signals have traveled to these command blocks, if we have a look here at this command, it summons basically a minecart with lots and lots of invisible sheep stacked inside it, and on top of that is an ender pearl. And if we come over here, let's find one of these. If I just do this quickly, there you go, apologies. if I press this button, you'll see that there's a minecart, and then a couple of blocks in the air there is an ender pearl. And we've also used a silent tag on the ones over here, if I can find it. Apparently, yeah, here it is. Silent is 1, and that just makes it so that they do not make a noise whilst you're inside, which is very handy. And all that happens here is there is water inside this area underneath carpets, which is hidden underneath the ground, and so the minecarts spawn inside this water, and then they get pulled to the center, where unfortunately the sheep have to be disposed of. And if I just show you this in action, you can see that here are the sheep, and if we go underneath here, the sheep are flowing to the middle, and then they drop down and go bye-bye. And that is how the Muon simulator works. Now if we pop over to the fun fact machine, this is not my design. This was by somebody called Mumbo Jumbo. It's just altered slightly. So it uses the principle that shulker boxes can be stored in chests, and if we have a look inside here, each shulker box has a different amount of stacks inside it, which, as I mentioned earlier, comparators take the output signal strength of based upon the amount of items that's inside something. So if we look in here, there's this many items, which means that it outputs a signal strength of 5, and then this is a simple system to only output the largest signal strength. So over here, because it extends 5 outwards, only the 5th torch is turned on. And if we just look at this from a side angle, this is a very common design. 3 ticks at the bottom, 1 tick, and torches over here, and these just run out into command blocks. And if I pop into game mode 1, you can see these are just simple /tell commands that all do random things, apart from this one here, which is what gives the player the secret die. And this is all activated by a delay system. So once all of this has happened, because whilst it's running, these torches are flicking backwards and forwards, it will then push these pistons forwards, which are over here. These are sticky pistons, and so the torch which is on will power the block above it, and will power the appropriate command block or piston in this case. And so that's just preventing it from outputting multiple commands at once. But yeah, once again, that's not my design. I just slightly altered it to perform the task.